Spoiler warning, if you have not played Fallout 4 and don't want to find out what happens in the end of the game or any of its crucial plot points, then please turn away. For those of you who have experienced Fallout 4, with all of its highs and lows, there's one particular faction I wanted to discuss because it's had quite the impact on my experience with the game so far. Every time I start a Fallout game, I always say to myself, I'm going to explore all the factions. I'm going to try and complete the story via the less common paths. I'm not going to be set in my old ways because I want to see all that Fallout has to offer. Yet, without fail, I end up in that damn power armor clunking around doing whatever the elders ask of me. And it was after completing the main quest of Fallout 4 that things started to click. I think I found out why this seems to always ring true for me. I think it's because there is a certain familiarity I have with the Brotherhood of Steel. It's like I'm off wandering the wasteland, pillaging decrepit supermarkets, creeping around abandoned vaults, or even sniffing my way through an old dilapidated metro. But then I bump into my old crew. They're standing there with their miniguns outfitted in power armor, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about you guys. Let's see what you've been up to way out here in the Commonwealth.
Democracy is the essence of good. Communism, the very definition of evil.
Oh, and don't even get me started about Liberty Prime. That's my guy. As a kid, I loved Brad Bird's seminal animated film, The Iron Giant. My heart still aches for that beautiful hunk of metal. As soon as I found out that the Brotherhood of Steel's prized possession, Liberty Prime, would make an appearance in the Brotherhood of Steel's campaign, I was more than satisfied with my decision to destroy my 60-something-year-old son-father.
What's happened to you? Are you sick?
Well, don't pretend to care now. You had your chance to help me, then cast me aside instead.
Along with all his sins in the name of mankind, and lest we forget, in the name of mother frickin' democracy. The Brotherhood of Steel has some of the coolest gear in the series. If you're a fan of Warhammer's religious, zealot-infused military forces of the Emperor, then you can certainly draw some comparisons between Warhammer 40k's For the Emperor energy and Fallout's Brotherhood of Steel's Ad Victoriam mantra.
Ad Victoriam, Sentinel.
These are factions who serve a higher calling. Whether or not that higher calling is a pillar for good is an entirely different conversation.
As I expect Elder Maxon has already explained, the destruction of the Institute is simply the first stage of our operations in the Commonwealth. There are still super mutants and ferals to be dealt with, as well as any remaining synths that escaped the blast.
Power armor is just so irresistibly cool, it makes for great box art too. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation era will forever be etched in my mind as the generation of ominous, retro-futuristic, mechanical, post-apocalyptic suits. There's BioShock's Big Daddies, of course Fallout 3's Brotherhood of Steel, Killzone's Helgen Empire, and StarCraft 2's Terran units. And I'm sure I'm missing more than a few. There's something alluring about soldiers beholden to a dark, somewhat twisted ideology while clinging to the last vestiges of humanity in the face of extinction. Look, if it's the end of the world, I'm going to sign up with whoever has the best tech, coolest gear, and hokiest catchphrases. And if we're going to go out, let's go out in style and let's have some fun. The Brotherhood of Steel's questlines are usually some of the most complex and rich in the Fallout titles. Their morality and ethics are a bit questionable, and they're a little too stuffy when it comes to their ideologies. But they often have some of the steampunkiest HQs with an emphasis on exciting technology. I always find myself drawn to whatever they're up to in the wasteland, even if I have to make a few compromising choices. I'd imagine as a writer, there's a decent amount of pressure writing the quest lines, dialogue, and major plot beats regarding the Brotherhood of Steel. Perhaps that may be a reason why this faction always seems to be up to interesting things. In many ways, I think Fallout 4's Brotherhood of Steel storyline saved the game's mainline quest experience. The whole detective drama of trying to find my 60-year-old baby son felt a little naive. It was a bit perplexing when my player character is like, wow, the world is so different, so much carnage, so much barren wasteland, whole new species of synths, super mutants, ghouls. They're all roaming the world, but also, have you seen my little baby boy about yay high? The whole thing just didn't quite click with me, so it felt nice to jump into a campaign that was like, yeah, we don't care about your son, or the fact that you're like 100 years old. We're not really going to get into that personal element of you. Let's just focus on destroying the Institute, saving humanity, and getting you set up with a jetpack. It was like a huge sigh of relief to join up with a bunch of zealots with guns and just do our thing as a squad, you know? In revisiting Fallout 4's main campaign storyline, I've recontextualized what I love about Bethesda Game Studios' creative choices with the series' 4th installment. I've also pinpointed a few critiques along the way. When it comes to the lore of this series, the world of Fallout is super expansive and pretty deep, and I am still very much a novice to the magnitudes of this world and all of its rich offerings. From aliens to politics and an entire alternate history of the world, whether it's an audio-based holotape, a cutscene, a dialogue tree, or a terminal log, Fallout 4 offers a significant amount of world building. With the right amount of patience, a player can completely immerse themselves into the Fallout 4's Commonwealth. Now, that's not to say that I prefer the writing of Fallout 4 to its predecessors in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, but I do think it'd be unfair to ignore all that the game offers in its immersive storytelling. If I were to sum up my initial impressions of the base game experience of Fallout 4, I'd have to address the prevalence of Bethesda's dynamic quest content, often referred to as Radiant Story. I think there's a great experience inside of Fallout 4's many story-centric quests. However, the game can feel a bit hollow when the dynamic quest nature of procedurally generated content unnecessarily stretches out the impact of the story's pacing.
I've got time to assist on a patrol.
That's the spirit. While our scribes are well trained, combat is not their specialty. Meet the scribe on the ground. Your mission is to escort and protect a scribe while locating a data source. Once found, the scribe will extract the data, and you'll return both data and scribe safely back to the base.
On more than a few occasions, game director Todd Howard has explained how this generative story content works. Often, he'll attribute it to an experience, such as you meet someone, they say their son is lost in a cave, we'll locate a nearby dungeon that you haven't visited yet, we'll put some loot in there and give the cave a name, and you'll have a radiant dungeon. Now, those aren't his exact words, but that's more or less how I've come to understand Radiant Story and the emergent quest design theory. I recently spotted a scenario like this in Skyrim, so this concept predates Fallout 4, and ironically, I think Skyrim is a little more nuanced in how it handles this technology. I'd say with Fallout 4, the joy of the game's loop really didn't start to steep in until I started to wrap up the game and make some seriously consequential choices. Spoiler alert, this is about when the game forced me to pick a side. I chose the Brotherhood of Steel, because honestly, I just couldn't imagine not returning to the Priden's flight deck. This dire choice, with countless consequences, arrived about the same time that the game's story and various mechanics began to intertwine in a satisfying way. I was about 75 hours in at that point. Typically, I find games like Fallout 4 to be the most rewarding when the storytelling components are always within an arm's length of each other, rather than stretching them out so far that the game becomes difficult to follow from a plot-to-plot beat. At the same time, I didn't want to disrespect the side content and the replayability of the other components of Fallout 4, so I gave the Settlements and Minutemen quests a chance, but at a certain point, I came to the realization that all of this was distracting from my own preferred playstyle. So, the Brotherhood of Steel questline has offered and still offers me the type of content that I'm mostly interested in. Of course, I wish it was handled with less of a linear approach. It often feels like there's one, maybe two ways to complete most quests, and it takes some of the fun out of the role-playing element. Elder Maxon can be a bit trigger-happy, which can often force the player's hand if that player wants to stay on the Brotherhood's good side. I will say that I really did enjoy the twist regarding Paladin Dance's origins.
I'm Paladin Dance, Brotherhood of Steel. Over there is Scribe Halen and Knight Reese. We're on recon duty, but I'm down a man and our supplies are running low.
Prior to knowing that Dance himself was a synth, I didn't find a reason to really connect with him. However, seeing him in a vulnerable position was really interesting. I refused to kill him and ultimately was able to resolve the situation in a way that felt super gratifying. I really liked the side character of Scribe Halen as well. These moral dilemmas really heighten the narrative and make use of the ensemble in a productive way. There's nothing worse than a character becoming nothing more than a giver of bland quests. It's really felt like the Brotherhood of Steel is a bit more substantial when it comes to the story elements of Fallout 4, but I'll leave it there for now. I'm nowhere close to seeing all that Fallout 4 has to offer. Just recently, I visited the School of Witchcraft and would love to discuss that at a later point, but thank you for watching. This has been the Yetti Den. I will see you next time. Bye.